From the terrace of Piazzale Michelangelo, we have a wonderful view of Florence and its surroundings. Florence is the cradle of the Renaissance, and today is the city of art and culture par excellence. Miraculously, it has been preserved almost intact and has managed to avoid the worst excesses of urban speculation. The scene we see before us is practically the same as it was 5 centuries ago when Michelangelo, Botticelli and Il Ghirlandaio came here to admire it. One of the oldest buildings in Florence is the Ponte Vecchio, Old Bridge, which is thought to date back to Roman times or even the Etruscans. When it was destroyed for the second time by a flood in 1333, it was rebuilt in its present solid form. It is wide enough to have small shops on either side under the twin-arched porticos. Originally, these shops were butchers and wool merchants, while today they are occupied by jewelers and souvenir shops. Not far away from Ponte Vecchio is Piazza della Signoria, the focal point for civic life in Florence. It gets its name from the Palazzo Vecchio, also known as Palazzo della Signoria, whose austere facade overlooks the piazza. The many pieces of sculpture located in the piazza make it an open-air museum. Amongst these works there is Michelangelo's celebrated statue of David. Although it is a copy, the original is in the Galleria dell'Accademia, this statue never fails to arouse strong emotions. Then there are the statues of Hercules and Cacus by Baccio Bandinelli, Judith and Holofernes, a copy of a bronze by Donatello, and the Fountain of Neptune, designed by Bartolomeo Ammanati in 1575. On one side of the piazza, under the fine portico of the Loggia dei Lanzi, there are other masterpieces such as The Rape of the Sabine Women, a group sculpted by Giambologna in the mid-16th century, Hercules and Nessus, again by Giambologna, and finally the marvellous bronze figure of Perseus, created by Benvenuto Cellini in 1554. From Piazza della Signoria, we move on to the Uffizi Gallery, one of the world's outstanding art collections. Many of the works are instantly recognizable. The Tondodoni by Michelangelo, an unconventional portrayal of the Holy Family. The Birth of Venus by Sandro Botticelli. The Madonna of the Goldfinch by Raphael. The Magnificent Annunciation by Leonardo da Vinci. Venus of Urbino by Titian. Continuing our visit to the heart of Florence, we come to the cathedral, Santa Maria del Fiore, which was begun in 1296 by Arnolfo di Cambio and consecrated in 1436. The present facade was erected in the late 1800s with elaborate decoration and sculptures. Next to the cathedral stands the magnificent bell tower, begun by Giotto in 1334 and finished by Francesco Talenti in 1359. The interior of the cathedral, with its 3 wide naves, is austere and imposing. Above the portal, there is a large clock with the heads of the prophets at the corners, done by Paolo Uccello in 1443. church contains many other valuable works of art, including the immense dome designed by Brunelleschi, which was frescoed in 1579 with scenes from the Last Judgment by Giorgio Vasari and Federico Zuccari. In front of the cathedral stands the Baptistry of St. John. The baptistry is famous for its 3 gilded bronze doors, one of which, known as the Door of Paradise, was decorated in the mid-15th century with relief panels by Lorenzo Ghiberti. Nearby is the Palazzo dell'Arte della Lana, named after one of the most important trade guilds in the Middle Ages, wool merchants. Beside it stands Or San Michele, a massive building erected in 1337 to serve as the corn market. Later it was turned into a church and adorned with several statues and other decorative features. One of Florence's most beautiful piazzas is Santissima Annunziata, a regular and harmonious shape flanked by Renaissance porticos. The piazza has 2 Baroque fountains and an equestrian statue by Gian Bologna portraying Ferdinand I. One of the high points of Florentine Gothic is the Basilica of Santa Croce. This Franciscan basilica was based on a design by Arnolfo di Cambio in the late 13th century. The Gothic interior is exceptionally fine, with 3 wide and well-lit naves. Alongside the church stands the convent, with its bright and airy cloister and porticos. Inside the convent is the Santa Croce Museum, which has several fine works of art. The refectory is adorned with vast frescoes by Taddeo Gaddi. On one wall there is one of the most important works of art in the city, Cimabue's renowned crucifix, which, though badly damaged by the flood in 1966, still has all its original fascination. On the other side of the river Arno, we come to San Miniato al Monte, one of the high points of Florentine Romanesque architecture, erected between 1018 and 1207. Back in the heart of the city, we come to San Lorenzo, the church which is most closely linked to the history of the Medici family. It was built in 1442 by Filippo Brunelleschi, but he was unable to complete the facade. Inside the church, there are 2 large pulpits in bronze by Donatello. The bas-reliefs were done by his pupils. There is also a splendid Annunciation by Filippo Lippi, dating from 1450. The basilica also contains the Medici chapels, where members of the Medici family are buried. They are famous for the 2 great sepulchres sculpted by Michelangelo. One was for Giuliano, Duke of Nemours, the 3rd son of Lorenzo the Magnificent. The other was for his firstborn, Lorenzo, Duke of Urbino, seated with the figures of dawn and dusk at his feet. The last great church we visit is Santa Maria Novella, another masterwork in the Florentine Gothic style, built by architects from the Dominican order in the late 13th century. The 14th century facade, decorated with polychrome marble, was designed by another great Tuscan architect, Leon Battista Alberti. The interior is divided into 3 arched naves and contains many works of art, including a marvelous crucifixion by Masaccio. Our tour of Florence ends at the city's most imposing building, Palazzo Pitti, which contains wonderful works of art, such as Raphael's portrait of Pope Julius II, Titian's Mary Magdalene, the Madonna della Seggiola, and the Madonna del Granduca, again by Raphael. The palazzo is surrounded by the Boboli Gardens, a splendid example of an Italian-style park which was commissioned by Eleonora of Toledo, wife of Cosimo I. We leave Florence and pass through the wonderful Tuscan countryside, dotted with towns and villages, all marked by their medieval layout and character. After a short while, we reach San Gimignano, famous for its many towers, which can be seen from far off. History recounts that in the 13th century, there were no less than 72 of them, each belonging to a family. The owners tried to outdo one another by building taller and taller towers. However, by law, none of these buildings were allowed to exceed the height of the town hall tower. Today there are 15 of them left, and they make a splendid and unusual sight, especially at sunset when the whole village takes on an evocative atmosphere that harks back to medieval times. Tuscany also offers us another very beautiful city, Pisa, which was a powerful maritime republic in the 11th century. Today the city is famous for its extraordinary Campo dei Miracoli, Field of Miracles. In the middle, the stupendous cathedral, where the Romanesque style merges with elements of classical architecture. Alongside it stands the handsome baptistry and the Camposanto, a fascinating gallery of Tuscan painting. Just behind the cathedral, we come to the most famous sight of all, the Leaning Tower. Designed by Giovanni Pisano in the late 12th century, it already began to lean when construction had reached the third level. Still in Tuscany, we come to another magical place, Siena. Set on 3 hills, this city has the largest number of works of art after Florence. The heart of the city is the splendid Piazza del Campo, shaped like a large shell, dominated by Palazzo Pubblico, one of the most elegant buildings in the Tuscan Gothic style. The piazza also has a beautiful fountain, Fonte Gaia, designed by Jacopo della Quercia in 1419. Another major architectural work in the Gothic style is the cathedral, or Duomo, begun by Nicola Pisano in the late 1200s. Siena has a university and a music conservatory founded many years ago. It also has one of the oldest banks in the world, known as Monte dei Paschi, and is the hometown of St. Catherine, patron saint of Italy. There is a shrine in her name visited by pilgrims from all over the world. Siena is the ideal city in which to enjoy the peace and quiet of another age. But the peace is broken twice a year when the Palio horse race takes place, an occasion which unleashes rivalry and fanaticism amongst the city's districts, known as contrade. The race itself lasts just over a minute, but it is anxiously awaited all through the year. 3 frenzied laps around Piazza del Campo by 10 horses and their riders, representing the various districts, all out to win. It's a race where anything goes, and where the winner is not a person, but a horse.